welcome to another virtual service. Before we start, I'm going to read a passage from Colossians 3. Colossians 3, 1 and 2. So if you have been raised with the Messiah, seek what is above, where the Messiah is, seated at the right hand of God. Set your minds on what is above, not on what is on the earth. For you have died, and your life is hidden with the Messiah in God. So what this passage is saying is, despite what is going on the earth and with the coronavirus, and there's so much fear, let's remember who is in control of it all, and let's remember to keep setting our minds on what is above and setting our minds on Jesus, the Messiah. It says here in verse 3, for you have died, and your life is hidden with the Messiah in God. A lot of people are afraid of dying from this virus. We're afraid that we're going to die, but we're already dead. God has sent his son to die for us. This past weekend, we celebrated Easter. So let's keep in mind the sacrifice that God sent his son for us, to die for us. And we have been buried with Christ, and we rise again. And let's continue to set our minds on him. Amen. Let's pray. Jesus, I thank you that you brought us here together for another service, God. I pray that for whoever is watching, I pray that you would touch them through our singing and through our message that will be coming. And God, I pray that whatever fear there may be, or whatever questioning we may have, I pray, God, that you would just bring us peace in this time, that you would bring us contentment, Lord God, that we would have peace and joy in you, and set our minds on the goal, set our minds on who is in control of it all. God, we thank you so much for what you've done for us, and we praise your holy, holy name. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
power, yours is the glory forever. Amen. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the power, yours is the glory forever. Amen. Yours is the kingdom, yours is the power, yours is the glory forever.
about you guys, but I really just enjoyed the time of worship that we had. You know, when we sing these songs, the worship is more than just a song. You know, these songs that we sing, they're not just for us to sing just to fill up a time slot, just to get through the service, but you know, the time that we have for worship, it's a time where we can pray. We can use the songs that we're singing as prayers. We just saying, God, I look to you. You know, be my vision. You know, give me wisdom. God, help me to see things the way you see it. God, give me strength because you know just what to do. Now, I don't know about you, but that sounds like more than just a song. You know, that sounds like something that I've prayed, and hopefully you've prayed many times. You know, especially now with this whole coronavirus thing happening, with everything that's going around and going on, we have no idea what's happening. There's not much we can control. All we can do is just sit around and just wait for it to pass. But, you know, in the meantime, you know, God, give us wisdom, you know, to do things the way you want us to do it. God, give us vision to help us see things the way you do. God, because you see an end to coronavirus. You see an end to everything that's happening. So God, just help us. And I hope that you guys were encouraged by that time of worship. I know we can't be together as one body in a building, but we can still be together in the spirit. And I hope that you guys were encouraged by that time of worship. And I hope that you guys were able to just feel the presence of God in the songs that we were singing. And now the text that I want to get into today, it's from John chapter 11. And if you don't know what this chapter is about, it's mainly about the death and the resurrection of this guy named Lazarus. And I'm just going to read through the chapter, and I'm just going to jump from place to place. Verse 1. Now a man named Lazarus was sick. He was from Bethany, the village of Mary and her sister Martha. This Mary, whose brother Lazarus now lay sick, was the same one who poured perfume on the Lord and wiped his feet with her hair. So the sisters sent word to Jesus, Lord, the one you love is sick. Verse 4. When he heard this, Jesus said, this sickness will not end in death. No, it is for God's glory, so that God's Son may be glorified through it. Now Jesus loved Martha and her sister and Lazarus. So when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And then he returned and said to his disciples, let us go back to Judea. Verse 17. On his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now Bethany was less than 2 miles from Jerusalem, and many Jews had come to Martha and Mary to comfort them in the loss of their brother. When Martha heard that Jesus was coming, she went out to meet him, but Mary stayed at home. Lord, verse 21, Martha said to Jesus, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. But I know that even now God will give you whatever you ask. Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. Verse 38. Jesus, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Verse 39. Take away the stone, he said. But Lord, said Martha, the sister of the dead man, by this time there is a bad odor, for he has been there 4 days. Then Jesus said, did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God? So they took away the stone. Then Jesus looked up and said, Father, I thank you that you have heard me. I knew that you always hear me, but I said this for the benefit of the people standing here, that they may believe that you sent me. When he had said this, Jesus called in a loud voice, Lazarus, come out. The dead man came out, his hands and feet wrapped with strips of linen and a cloth around his face. Jesus said to them, take off the grave clothes and let him go. And the reason I really like this passage is because it's more than just a passage of Jesus resurrecting someone. There's a lot of little details that really make the story. Like in the beginning of the chapter in verse 6, it says, so when he heard that Lazarus was sick, he stayed where he was 2 more days. And when I saw that, my first thought would have been, if my friend was sick, if someone that I really cared about was sick, I would probably go see them right away at the moment I heard they were sick. But what it says in here is that Jesus said to his disciples, like, hey, yeah, Lazarus is sick, but hey, let's chill here for a few more days. Let's chill here for 2 more days, and then we'll go see Lazarus. Now, when I first saw that, it kind of just seemed like Jesus was just being careless, like he didn't care about his friend. But that's not the case. So let's look on a little further. And in verse 17, It says, on his arrival, Jesus found that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now that 4 days is significant because in the Jewish tradition, when someone were to die, they would be put in the tomb, and after 3 days, after the third day was up, that would be considered the point of no more hope. You know, after the person had been dead for 3 days, there was considered to be no more hope for that person. They were dead. They were not going to come back to life, because there were many instances where people may have been sick and they passed out for a day or two and then they came back to life. So after the third day, that was considered to be the point of no return. So that's why it's important that it says right here that Lazarus had already been in the tomb for 4 days. Now, it seems like if Jesus didn't wait 2 days to come and meet Lazarus, maybe he could have brought him back to life, because he said, I'll bring him. In verse 23, Jesus said to her, your brother will rise again. You know, if Jesus came before that point of no return where Lazarus was, sick, for only 2 days, he was in the tomb for 2 days, maybe there was a chance that he could have been back to life, or he could have been brought back to life. Maybe there was still a chance that he wasn't actually dead, that he was just in a coma or something, and when Jesus came to heal him, to bring him back to life, it wouldn't have been, something to worry about. But it says here, Jesus arrived at the tomb 4 days after he died. And that was by choice. Jesus knew that it would have been a 2-day walk to get to Bethany from where he was. And that's why Jesus waited 2 days, because he knew that by the time he got there, he would have arrived to Martha and Mary where there would have been no more hope. He came to them in a situation where they had no more hope, where they lost all hope for their brother to come back. They lost all their belief that their brother was just sick and that he wasn't actually dead, and that he would have just been brought back to life, or he would have just been woken up by Jesus. But that wasn't the case. Jesus came back at the time when there was no more hope for them, where there was no more belief in them, when all of their faith had run out, when they were when they were depressed, when they were distressed, when they were in times where they didn't know what to do. And in verse 21, it says here, now, personally for me, if I called out to God and I said to him, God, I need your help, but then I heard that he was just waiting, because he was just doing nothing. He was just waiting, and he heard my prayer. He heard that I was in need of something. He heard that I was desperately calling out to him for something, but then I heard that he was just waiting and he wasn't doing anything. When he heard me, I would be pretty annoyed. And if you take verse 21 in a different light, when Martha runs up to Jesus after he starts arriving to the town where they were at, this is what Martha says to him. If you had been here, my brother would not have died. Let me say that again. Martha said to Jesus, Lord, if you had been here, my brother would not have died. If you came through, my parents would not have fought with each other. Jesus, if you came through, I wouldn't be going through this situation. Jesus, if you came through, if you were here, I would not be feeling lonely. Jesus, if you were here, I would not be depressed. I would not be anxious. I would not be dealing with all these things that I have no control over. But here's what Martha said in verse 22. But I know that even now, God will give you whatever you ask. This is what Mary said to Jesus. She said, God, if you were here, my brother would not have died. But even now, I know that you can still bring him back from the dead. Now that's a level of faith that we need, youth. That we need. This is a level of faith that many times I struggle to have. But because Martha had that kind of faith, this is what Jesus said to her. Your brother will rise again. Your situation will come back to life. Your family will get better. You will stop dealing with insecurity. You will stop dealing with the thoughts that you're not good enough, that you're not as special as someone else, because all of those are lies. The people who are put in high positions where everyone sees them, they're not loved more by God. God loves everyone equally in his eyes. There is no, at the foot of the cross, it's even playing ground. There's no favorites with God. He loves all of us so carefully and intimately and deeply. To say that I'm not as special as someone else because they're doing something and I'm not, that's a lie from the enemy. God doesn't care about what we can do. He cares about who we are. He cares about us, ourselves. He doesn't look at our talents. He gave us our talents, but he doesn't look at what we do with our talents. He looks at us. You know, when I see my baby sister, I've been at home ever since the quarantine. Whenever I see my baby sister walking around and just talking to me and doing all these things, you know, she doesn't have to do anything for me to like her. I just see her and I'm like, man, I love my sister. Man, I love that she's my sister, that she acts this way. I love that. And that's how God is with us. You know, he sees us and he loves us so deeply. And he cares for us so much, and everything he allows for it to happen to for a specific purpose. You know, there's a reason that he waits. There's a reason that he waits for things to get worse when we pray for things to get better. There's a reason why God will allow us to suffer when we pray for healing. Because he says here, this sickness will not end in death. No. Everything that's happening, me coming late, me showing up late, Jesus is saying, all of this is for God's glory, so that Jesus, I could be glorified through it. You know, Jesus is saying, I want people to see my glory. I want to show the world what I can do, because I can do great things. And your situation where your parents are fighting with each other, where things are not going well, where you're struggling with depression, that's the kind of situation that that's the situation where I can come in and I can show people what I can do. What I'm the healer, I'm the Prince of Peace, where I can bring peace in situations where there should be no peace, where I can bring healing where there should be no healing, where there can be restoration and people coming back together where there should be separation. You know, this is the God that we serve. This is the God that loves us. This is the God that cares for us. You know, all these things, all this suffering it's not pointless. It's not for no reason. You know, it's not that God doesn't care. He does care. He cared so much that he waited. He cared so much about Lazarus and Martha and Mary that he waited 2 days to the point where they had no more hope about what was happening, to the point where they had no more faith in what he could do. And after this, after Lazarus was raised from the dead, you know, because the whole town, it says so many people came to comfort Mary and Martha. So this was a thing that the whole town knew about. So because Jesus waited and he came at the exact moment that he needed to, his glory was shown throughout the whole town. You know, in your situation, I don't know what it may be. Maybe God is waiting so that when he comes, when he works, when he does what he said he is going to do, it can be to give the glory to himself, so that his glory can be shown through your family, through your classmates, through maybe your church, who you're with, maybe with your husband or your wife, whoever it may be. All of this is happening so that when Jesus comes and he works in the way he wants to work, it's going to bring glory. Not only it's going to bring glory to him, it's going to bring his greatness on display. It's going to bring his love for everyone on display for everyone to see. So just in the coming week, I just want to encourage all of you guys to, no matter what you guys are going through, no matter what you're dealing with, struggling with, that you may just have faith in Jesus, because it was the faith of Martha that brought Lazarus back to life. It was the faith that Martha had that kept on moving Jesus's heart. You know, because in Hebrews 11 it says, without faith it's impossible to please God. Now I believe that if Martha just came up to Jesus and just kept complaining, oh Jesus, if you were here, Lazarus wouldn't be dead. If you came earlier, he would still be fine. Everything would be fine. There would be no problems. There would be no struggling. But no, you didn't. You didn't come through. You just did your own thing. You didn't care about me. Forget it. I don't want anything to deal with you anymore, Jesus. If she would have just done that, Lazarus would have never come back to life. That entire town would have never seen the glory of God. They would have never known just how much love Jesus has for his people. They would have never seen the power that, to bring dead people back to life. So with that, I just want to encourage you guys, just whatever you're going through, have faith. Faith is what will get you through it. God's goodness isn't waiting for no reason. God is waiting in his goodness so that at the right time, at the proper time, he's going to come through. He's going to work and he's going to move in a mighty way, because that's what he wants to do. Just believe that, youth. Just believe that, church, that God desires to move. He wants to see your family restored more than you do. So with that, youth, I just want to thank you for tuning in. Thank you for watching. I pray that you guys can be encouraged in the coming week, and with that, be blessed. Take care, guys.